All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I've been creating a series of video presentations based on the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. I'm in the JavaScript portion, and I'm talking about now inheritance. And as it says, this article shows how to create child objects classes that inherit features from their parents. In addition, we present some advice on where you might want to use object-oriented JavaScript and look at how classes are dealt with using the modern ECMA syntax. So this is prototypical inheritance. As mentioned here, so far we have seen some inheritance in action. You have seen how prototype chains work and how members are inherited going up the chain. But as it says here, mostly this has involved built-in browser functions. How do we create an object in JavaScript that inherits from another object? All right. So they want us to make another copy of this, which I have absolutely no problem doing. Probably hasn't changed much since the last one, but that's still fine. All righty. Inside here, you'll find the same person constructor we've been using throughout. We've only defined the properties inside of the constructor. All right. So this expects that when we create a new person object, that we will be passing in a first name, which would be a string, a last name, which would be a string, an age, which would be an integer or just a number field, a gender, which should be a string, and interests, which is either a string or some kind of an array. Okay? So it says the methods are all defined on the constructor's prototype. So as it says, person.prototype.greeting equals a function with all this, etc. in there. Say we wanted to create a teacher class like the one described in the initial thing, which inherits all the members from person, but also includes a new property, subject, which is what the teacher teaches, and an updated greeting method, which, as it says, sounds a bit more formal than the standard one, something you might actually describe for a teacher. So when you look here, it actually makes a lot of sense, because what it's saying is, okay, we got person.call, we've got this, and the first name will be handled by person, the last name will be handled by person, the age, the gender, and the interests. So what's new in here will be the subject. So as it says, this looks similar to a person constructor in many ways, but there is something strange here that we have not seen before. That's the call function, which allows you to call a function defined somewhere else, but within the current context. As mentioned here, the first parameter specifies the value this, and the other parameters are those that should be passed to, in this case, the person function when it's invoked. We want the teacher function to take the same parameters as the person. All right, so we specify them inside of the call. The last line defines the new subject property the teachers are going to have that generic person does not have. So we could have also done this, but there's a lot of redefining and redefinition that's in there, and it's not that it's wrong, but doing it the other way is a lot more forthcoming, and I think it's a better way of doing it. So again, although it could be doing it this way, it's as it says, it kind of defeats the point of what we're trying to do, and that is actually be able to use something that was previously defined and like play it forward, so to speak. All right. Okay. Inheriting from a constructor with no parameters. Note if the constructor you are inheriting from doesn't take its value from parameters, you don't need to specify them as additional arguments into call. So here, it's just this. And we'd be adding opacity and color, but it would be grabbing the width and the height basically from brick in this case. All right, so as it says, all is good so far, but we have a problem. We've defined a new constructor and it has a prototype property, which by default just contains an object with a reference to the constructor function itself. It does not contain the methods of the person constructor's prototype property. It says to see this, enter the following right here. In fact, did we put in the teacher's stuff? So I don't know, did I add this? No. All right, so I'm going back in and I'm going to add this, which is my teacher stuff. All right, so what we're told to do here says add the following line below your previous addition. All right, so it's telling us basically to almost duplicate what's in the person prototype and add it to the teacher, but we should also have this. So let's see. So it says here our friend create comes to the rescue again. In this case, we are using it to create a new object and make it the value of the teacher prototype. The new object has a person prototype as its prototype and therefore will inherit if and as needed. All right, all of the methods available for the person prototype. We need to do one more thing before we move on. After adding that last line, teacher.prototype's constructor property is now equal to persons because we just set it to that. Try saving it. It says and entering teacher.prototype constructor to verify. I should refresh first. All right, and it's showing person. This can become a problem and we need to set it right. You can do so by going back to your source code and adding the following line at the bottom. So down here, now if we save it as we have, come back to here. I'm not even going to remove this. I don't want to, I might have to refresh. Let's see. It still has person. So now it's got teacher. All right, after we refreshed. So that's good. All right, not sure even what I have right there, but that's still okay. All right. To finish off our code, we need to define a new greeting function on the teacher constructor. The easiest way to do this is to define it on the teacher's prototype. That makes sense because it's going to be used for teacher. So it's a male, they want to call him Mr., and if it's a female, they want to call them Ms. And if nothing has been in there, they want to call it MX. So we want to add this to the bottom of our code. As it says, this alerts the teacher's greeting, which is also an appropriate name prefix for the gender worked out with that conditional statement. Okay, so it says let's try this out. So let's put in teacher 1 here, as they say. And we've got male, so it should say Mr. All right, and it's got the subject, which is mathematics. The other stuff, Dave, the first name, Griffiths, the last name, 31, the age, male, the gender, football, and cookery, all basically should be working its way up this hierarchy to be able to grab that, because those are person traits. So they're saying we should be able to put all this stuff in there. And I'll tell you what, I'll do it like this. Not sure why it's giving me that, but yeah, it's got all the stuff we're looking for in here. So all right. And we want to get back to the console. There we go. So there's Dave. Again, I could change that to last. And I get Griffiths. What else do we have in here? The interests. Football, and I don't remember what the other one was. Cookery. The bio. "31 likes football and cookery." That looks good. The subject, this should be mathematics. And it is. It's good. The greeting and the farewell. You'll notice Mr., so it did grab that from the conditional. And I've got to stop that one. There we go. All right. And it does appear to be working okay. So in our OOP theory section, we also included a student class as a concept which inherits everything from the person, but has a different greeting method from the person, which is much more informal. So let's have a look at that. Okay, cool. And it says here, if you're having trouble, look at the finished version. So let's look at that. And again, that was somewhere in here. There was person, teacher, there was the student stuff. Let's just grab that. All right, and we will put that down on the end of what we are currently working on. All right. So there's our student stuff, and we have student 1. So this should be Liz Shepard, 17, female, ninjutsu, and air cadets. So let's save that. Come back over to here. Refresh. And we now have student 1. Let's just hit enter. And again, notice what you see in here. Age, gender, there's the interests, there's the first name and the last name, so it does appear as though it's grabbed everything for us. All right. So they summarize here and say, to summarize, you've got 4 types of properties methods to worry about. Those defined inside of the constructor that are given to object instances. Those defined directly on the constructor themselves that are only available on the constructor. All right, it says these are probably about the easiest. These are commonly only available on built-in browser objects. They're also known as static properties and methods. When something is static, basically it is something that is shared, all right, for lack of better words. We'll get into that more in a later lesson, I believe. Those defined on a constructor's prototype, which are inherited by all instances in the inheriting objects, and those available on an object instance, which can be either an object created when a constructor is instantiated, like we saw above, or using an object literal. It says if you're not sure which is which, don't worry about them yet. We're just learning about this. So the second part of this presentation for this particular article will be on ECMAScript 2015 classes. I'll be back with that in a couple minutes.